area of beautiful San Clemente. We're so glad you're here with us this morning. And we'd like you to join us on our very first sing-along song. And we have a big center screen here for you to use at your leisure. And this first song we're going to do is The Power. So if you'll stand, get those legs stretched out, and here we go.
Good morning. Wow, a lot of people here today. Always nice to see you. I turn my back for a minute, y'all walk in. So, welcome. If you've never been here before, you're, of course, most welcome, no matter where you are on your spiritual path. Everybody's welcome here. And for those of you who have been here before, I welcome you back. It's such a beautiful day, and I'm sure you could have been home watching reruns on television, or you could have been recovering from the night before. There's all kinds of choices you could have made, and yet here you are. And so what we are is we are a transcendental center, and that means that we include everyone. And what we do here is we teach spiritual principles. And if you learn to use these principles, you can use them to create the life that you really want, the life of your dreams. So if some things are going really, really well, they can always go better. And if some things are going less than the way you want them, well, who wants to settle for that? Could I see a show of hands? Okay, so you've come to the right place, and we're going to start the way we start here, and that is we do a call to service, which we call Lighting the Flames of Faith. Lighting the Flames of Faith, a call to service. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples and all faith, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence, which we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We light the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of compliance with the will of God as the highest calling. We light the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the candle for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. And as practitioner Faith Mackey lights the last candle, let it represent the path that brought you here this morning. And now I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer. So I like to close my eyes and shut out distractions so I can refresh my mind into recognizing the truth. And the truth that I know is simply this, that behind all appearances, despite the illusion, there is only one source, one infinite, creative, loving being that in its original state is absolutely formless, and so permeates and penetrates and occupies every inner space, and it is the one source of everyone and everything that is, that was, and that ever will be. And the nature of this one is, of course, infinite love, but it's also infinite intelligence, infinite wisdom. It's all wisdom. It is infinite, inexhaustible power. It is unopposed and unopposable. So it is always in a state of undisturbable peace. It's perfect order. It's infinite capacity for beauty and for appreciation, for gratitude, and for every good thing. And it does what life does. It is constantly creating expressions of itself to increase and expand its knowledge and its existence of itself. And so I know that each one of us is a divine idea in this one mind. Each one of us is Spirit's idea of itself, its vehicle for expressing more of itself, extended into this realm of time and space, also created out of itself, for the purpose of the richness of experience that's available in physical form. And so I know that I am an extension, not merely a creation of this one, but I am its vehicle, acting through me as an extension of infinite power, infinite love, infinite joy, infinite prosperity. And so I have the authority and the ability to direct this infinite power and thus co-create my life, and that is true of everyone else. So I claim for each person here, right here and right now, that it's already unfolding, that each person here is finding exactly what they are seeking by being here today. And each person is hearing in the service today, or experiencing the service today, something that unlocks and the key to finally accepting the ability and the willingness to live the life of your dreams. So I know that this is already so. I know that the moment I speak my word and direct and focus this into this infinite power, that everything in creation, including that yet to be created, has already locked itself into the perfect order to deliver this good. So I do my part. I agree to accept it. I say thanks for it. I also know that any ideas, any healing that needs to occur in anyone, anywhere, for this to be accepted completely with no prerequisites, no requirements. Just a freely given gift is given, and anything that's incongruent with that requires any healing, this healing is already occurring and it's palpable. So I give thanks, I release it into these perfect laws that act with absolute precision, and I can always count on them. And I simply let it be, as together we say, and so it is. And now Marlene Cutler with the affirmation.
Good morning. Good morning. So I'm going to be having you join me. We're going to do the Declaration of Principles and then the affirmation. So, I believe in God, the one creative intelligence, operating through the universe and operating throughout my entire being, now and always. I believe this perfect spirit operates upon the law of mind and creates my experience exactly according to my beliefs. I believe this perfect creative intelligence can be used by me and by every other person to produce health, abundance, and love in mind, body, and total life experience. I use it now, and I rejoice in it, and so it is. Our affirmation: there is one life. That life is God's life. That life is my life now, and so it is.
Thank you, Marlene. And now please welcome the Jules Tone Choir with a sneak preview of coming up attractions.
Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata. Ain't no passing craze. It means no worries for the rest of your days. It's not boundary, philosophy. Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata.
Thank you, Dual Tones Choir. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, band. Wow, I love that song. No worries for the rest of our days. How good is that? It's a good reminder because it's the truth. No worries, a problem-free philosophy. Sounds like the science of mind. I just have a couple of things to catch up from last week, because last week was Memorial Weekend, and one of the things that I showed was the group Invictus and the poem Invictus, and then the group that Cheryl Lyman was leading asked me, what does it mean? And I went, well, pretty sure it means, anyway, I looked it up. It does mean unconquerable, but it comes from the Latin for unconquerable, and it wasn't called that. William Henley didn't call it that. It was just the poem for several years, I think about 30 years, and then it got the title Invictus, which is a perfect title. And speaking of Memorial Day, I wanted to tell you this story about a woman whose husband passed away, and he left her $20,000, which in those days was a lot of money. And the next week she saw one of her friends, and the friend said, how are you doing? And how can I help? And she said, well, I'm broke. She said, how could you be broke? Your husband left you $20,000. She said, well, $5,000 for the funeral and $15,000 for the memorial stone. She said, there must be some stone. She said, yeah, 4 carats. Okay. So we're in a new month, and a new idea, and the new idea is spiritual wisdom and how to follow it. And my message this morning is, how does God know what you're doing? Well, that's a funny title. How does God know what you're doing? We know, first of all, it shouldn't even be a talk, but Ernest wrote an essay about it. It's 2.5 pages. And it really isn't about how does God know what we're doing. It's why would we wonder if God knew how big or how small, or if God could do what we are asking. So I will get to that in a second, but the whole idea of the title, how does God know what I'm doing? If you understand that God, whether you call that, whether that's the one power, the Father within, the creative mind, the divine intelligence that is everywhere present, no matter what name you have for it, it is always described in every religion. It's described as that which is omniscient, that which is omnipotent, that which is omnipresent. And omniscience means all-knowing. So God would know what I'm doing because God knows everything. It's that thing itself that knows all, knows everything, and is the only power there is. It is forever recreating out of itself, out of us, out of our beliefs, out of our ideas about ourselves, out of our feelings about life. It is, and it has no personality. And we don't like that because we like a personal God, and of course it is personal to us. But I know when I first heard something like that, I was like, don't tell me God doesn't have a personality. It's impersonal in that it gives of itself equally to everyone, equally to all. We don't have to earn that givingness, that grace. It just is simply flowing over with it at all times. Each one of us has all of it, which means no matter what it is that you're longing for, you already have it. Put your hand on your heart. Feel the heartbeat. And feel these words, I am sufficient. I am sufficient. Say it again. I am sufficient. Now look around. We are sufficient.
We are sufficient.
We are sufficient.
We are sufficient.
And this is the truth of us. This, thank you. And that ends the call and response. So what this is all about, that Ernest really did have one of his trustees had been sick for several weeks, and he said, why didn't you ask for treatment, or spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer. And his trustee said, I didn't want to bother God with that. Now that is an old idea. It's an old idea that somehow if you are asking for something for yourself, God doesn't have the capacity, the strength, or the power to give to you and to everyone else. Answer the prayers for peace, the prayers for well-being, whatever the prayers may be. This thing is unlimited. Think of the soil that surrounds our building and other places where there is a parking lot. Think of the soil, and it's going to grow equally. I'm sorry, gardeners, because you'll disagree with me, but it's going to equally be opportunity to grow, whether it's a tree that's planted there, a rose bush, some tulip bulbs, no matter what it is, it has an equal opportunity of growing everything. It's soil. Its nature is to grow. Well, the law of God is like that. It's equal. Whatever is planted in it, it simply says yes. Oh, now I've got abundance. Yes, now I've got health. Yes, now I've got relationships. Yes, now I've got friendships. Yes, it just says yes, yes, yes. Whatever is planted into it has no judgment about right or wrong. It has no judgment about big or small. So what Ernest points out, Ernest says, and remember he wrote these books in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. So when he wrote this book, he was talking about warts. He said, by suggestion, you can remove a wart. And then he said, if you held every other thing as lightly, if you held cancer as lightly as a wart, you'd be able to heal it in the same way, simply by knowing the truth, which is that the wholeness of life doesn't have any disease, it doesn't have any virus, it doesn't have any contagion. It only has the wholeness of itself. Each one of us has a pattern of perfect life within us. That means our health, it means our abundance, means our relationships, it means our creativity. Every single one of us has it all. And speaking of creativity, I applied, as you know, for my, I'm Canadian, applied for my becoming an American citizen long ago, about 2 years ago, but they didn't get that paperwork. So I applied again last year. And I finally heard this weekend from the Department of Homeland Security. So when you get something from the Department of Homeland Security, you look at it right away, and it says action is required. So I'm going to look for the action, and there's no action. It sends me another email. Action is required. And no one is there now, because by now it's Saturday night when I'm looking, and you can't call them up and say, what kind of action would you like me to take on this notice? Anyway, it's supposedly within the next few days, I'm supposed to get a letter telling me when my interview is and where my test will be. Yay me. So I'm moving along the process, and we know the next email I get, it's going to say the same thing, that action is required. But what a good thing to be reminded of. Action is required. That comes, we used to say, treat and move your feet. So in other words, we pray, we visualize, we see what it is we do want, and then we take appropriate action. We make the phone call. We send the email. We knock on the door. Whatever it is, whatever is the required action that is ours to do. And you might be asking, well, I don't know what my action is to do. Ask. Ask. That presence within you, this is where it becomes very personal. When you ask, it immediately tells you, immediately. There's no wait until next week, my beloved. Immediately tells you. This month's
daily guides are written by Jane Beach, and she's a wonderful colleague who writes a lot of curricula for us. And just a brilliant woman. She talks about her own awakening in the guides, and she says all she had to do was ask, and as soon as she asked, the answer was there. As soon as she asked, the answer was there. On Friday, I had an incredible experience of participating in a therapy group, Dr. Dan Hendricks' group, and they had wolf therapy. Doesn't that sound great? Yeah, wolf, W-O-L-F, wolf therapy. And I'm going, what is wolf therapy? And Dr. Dan, being very clever, said, well, you walk on coal, so you would probably like this. It's extreme therapy. And going, oh, that sounds a little scary. Anyway, it was really well done. Not only was the wolf therapy an opportunity to change one's mind about what one sees, but it was also great to see the work that was done in the group before. And one of the things that they did in the group was to remind people of your body language. Just look at how you're sitting. Anyone sitting like this? Because this body language, it usually keeps people out. It keeps a message out. It says, I'm from Missouri. Right, it says, I don't believe you, you have to prove it to me. But this body language says, show me. I'm ready, I'm open, I'm vulnerable. And they pointed out, the person that was leading it pointed out that sometimes that open posture can be perceived as weak. And one of the members of the group asked me about that because I'm a minister and he is a minister. That is it true that when you're being humble, it can sometimes be perceived as weakness? And absolutely it can be. But it's the strongest strength there is. It's the strongest strength there is to be willing to be vulnerable. And what that means for a dog, a cat, expose the tummy, expose the throat. And then we got to have the therapy with the actual 2 wolves. And in preparation for that, I want you to see something I showed some of you a few months ago, maybe years ago, called Wolves Change Rivers. So let's take a quick look at this and then I'll finish up.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years. That the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds, of migratory birds, started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion, the channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
There you're doing. Wolves change rivers. The young man that had brought 2 white wolves explained this to us, and I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if they could all see what I had seen, because the whole park changed. He was telling us that wolves originally were in every state of the United States. And then because humans are their only predator, we killed them all. And they've been reintroduced to California and now made an endangered species, which is a good thing because look at what they could do for the environment they're placed in. But, you know, this is a spiritual center for human beings. So what he called it was a keystone, that the wolves were a keystone to the environment. And I'm saying we are the keystones. We are the change agents. We're the ones that make a difference, and we're making a difference every day that we remember who we are. Reverend Bruce led this wonderful meditation, and he had us breathing in unconditional love into our hearts and then breathing it out. And he reminded us that that love was making a difference all around us and everywhere. Everywhere we go, there's a vibration of love because it's what we are, it's who we are. Spiritual wisdom is right where you are. Follow it by listening to the inner wolf, which is really the change agent within you. And so it is. And now we'll just anchor that with prayer. So in this holy moment of right now, This is what I know is true. I know that there's only one life, and that life is God's life. That life is whole, complete, and perfect in absolutely every way. That life is a harmony, an orchestra. It is everywhere present. This universe is a song, is a melody, and each one of us is essential to that wholeness, to that aliveness, to that presence. What I know for each one of us today is that we, each one, starting with myself, and I'll say this word in the first person, I am more aware of that God presence within me than I ever have been before. And that awareness makes all the difference. It blesses me personally as I am more attractive to my friends and to my relatives, and I'm kinder and more compassionate to all of life. It brings wealth of every kind because I'm living knowing my sufficiency with Source, my oneness with that divine spirit, with that presence. It brings me perfect health, vitality and energy, and ageless being, and spiritual maturity. It brings me new ideas, ideas that I've never had before, ideas that are useful, ideas that are coming straight from Source. And so today, I say yes to the greater ideas within me. No longer am I resisting my good. No longer am I pressing it away from myself. I am embracing it. I'm saying yes, yes, yes. I love this life that I'm living, and I am living the life I love. With my heart filled with gratitude, I simply place this word in the law of God, and please help me anchor it by saying with me, and so it is. So once more, the Jewel Tones Choir.
Our soloists on this song are Wade Wooldridge and Ken Roebuck.
The colors of
skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I say to myself, what a wonderful world.
Another all-time favorite. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm looking forward to Friday already. It's time now for us to share our gifts, our tithes, our offering, and so if the stewards would please come forward. This is a time of giving back and of being grateful as we're doing so. So we take a few minutes to really feel the energy of life flow through us, of love flow through us. And remember, whatever you give with love returns to you multiplied. So if you're giving something today, make sure you're giving it with love. And so we're going to say our prosperity affirmation together. My offering is my acceptance of God as the source of my supply and symbolizes my faith in the abundant flow of this supply.
So
to tell you that the dreams you plan really can come true. The second star to the right shines with a light that's rare. And if it's Neverland you need, its light will lead you there. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, so I'll know where you are, gleaming in the skies above. Lead me to the land I dream of. And when our journey is through, each time we say goodnight, I'll thank the little star that shines the second from the right. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, so I'll know where you are, gleaming in the skies above. Lead me to the land I dream of. And when our journey is through, each time we say goodbye, I'll thank the little star that shines the second from the
It's so beautiful to have our whole offertory as a spiritual practice. And speaking of spiritual practices, being in sacred service is a spiritual practice, and I'd like to acknowledge those of you who are in sacred service. I know that's, so any volunteers, the whole choir is in sacred service. We don't pay you. So let's acknowledge all of the people who are standing. We're so grateful for each one of you, for all that you do. And then if the practitioners remain standing, if you want your life transformed, make an appointment with one of these people. You'll be so happy you did. To get a taste of it on Sunday, stop by one of the affirmative prayer tables here or in the Tranquility Room. The people who are in service today are the ones who are standing. Well, Tony too? No. Kathy Story, Dr. Jeannie Houchel, Faith Mackey, and Marlene Kuckler. Let's acknowledge our practitioners. And I'd like to acknowledge the people who are visiting us this morning. If you're here for the very first time, and if you're really brave, you could pop up and stand up. And if you're just so brave, at least raise your arm. Okay, raise your hand. Good for you. Good for you. Lots of visitors this morning. We're delivering to you, stay standing if you wouldn't mind. We're delivering to you a bag full of goodies that has some information about us and a gift. And if you fill in the sheet on the inside and take it to the bookstore, you'll receive another gift. It's a book. And we're going to affirm you. So if you sitting, standing, or at least wave your arms, please repeat after me, congregation. Welcome to our center.
Welcome to our center.
We're very happy you're here.
We're very happy you're here.
We know you make a difference.
We know you make a difference.
Because we know that Spirit is in you.
Because we know that Spirit is in you.
That you are wholeness.
That you are wholeness.
That you are prosperity.
That you are prosperity.
That you are love and beloved.
That you are loved and beloved.
Coming here is coming to Spirit. Welcome home.
Coming here is coming to Spirit. Welcome home.
And God's greatest idea, do you know what that is?
Yes.
That's you. So if you have a birthday in June, would you please stand so we can acknowledge you? June is a birthday in June. Dina has a birthday. Oh, great. Okay, let's sing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
And now, announcements.
Today's announcements are brought to you by Fandango. Buy tickets online with Fandango.
If your husband is like mine and doesn't take you anywhere, take matters into your own hands. No pun intended. And go to Conscious Connections right after the service from 12 to 12:30. Feel free to join in the discussion about the ideas presented today. Childcare is provided and no tickets are required.
What do you mean I never take you anywhere? I took you to Wiener Schnitzel just last week. I was going to take you to Dr. Heather's Tuesday night class, but it's canceled due to the upcoming choir show.
There's a choir show? Oh no!
I did, because they canceled Wednesday Wisdom this week as well.
Boy, our choir sure works hard to put on a great show.
Or they just need a lot of practice.
Didn't you hear them today? They were fabulous.
How right you are, especially that Wade guy. He's amazing.
You know who else is amazing? Aiden Greeny. He'll be teaching a visioning class on Sundays from 12:30 to 2:30. It's an 8-week accredited class that goes from June 17 to August 5, and the cost is $160. There's a sign-up sheet on the kiosk.
What? No tickets online through Fandango.
No, and you don't need no new tickets for the new friendship circles either. They're almost ready to begin, but you do need to sign up. So talk to Reverend Carla at the back of the room.
Tell me more about this choir show.
I already told you. I didn't even know there was a choir show. You tell me.
I have to do everything around here. Well, when I came in today, I saw that Rita had a table set up to sell tickets to the choir show.
Well, what kind of show is it? Is it going to give me some culture?
It's called Songs of the Silver Screen, and it features your favorite songs from the movie.
Oh, like that song from the movie Stripes?
Yeah, boom chaka-laka laka, boom chaka-laka laka. Well, no, we tried that, and the choreography was too hard.
So it's probably stuff like Hakuna Matata and Wonderful World.
And everything from classic movies to Disney animations. There's something for everybody.
Well, would you take me and spend like $47 on popcorn and soda and treats?
Even better, your ticket includes treats.
You're so cheap, Wade. Next thing you'll be saying you have a coupon.
I'll tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying there's no time like right now to go buy those tickets, as the show is this Friday.
So this is like the last chance?
Yeah, so go back there and get those tickets. But first, let's sing a song that is not in the choir show, but is from the movie Woodlawn.
Okay.